Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a review of 3 Chardonnays from Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain Vineyards is a BC winery which I'm very high on. I've done lots of other videos on Blue Mountain Winery and explaining their history of the Mavity family. I'll put that at the end of this video. Essentially why I like them is that they produce great quality wines at fairly affordable prices, and they haven't marked up their wines so that they're still really affordable for everyone, but the quality is there. This year, this is brand new for them. They've always made great Chardonnay, but the Chardonnay this year, they've actually divided out into single block, just like the Pinot Noir. So this is their first vintage of single vineyard Chardonnays. They have 2 of them, and then they also have a reserve wine, which is a blend of these 2 vineyards plus other vineyards. So it's really interesting. I'm really glad they sent these wines to me to taste. And again, you look at the price points, they're not that expensive. So in general, Blue Mountain Chardonnay wines, I would say, are on the peaches and cream type style of Chardonnay. So they're not overly oaked, they are oaked, but they're on the lighter style, the crisper style, the creamier style of Chardonnay. And so for those people who don't like very oaky Chardonnays, then I think you might enjoy these wines. So we're gonna start with the Blossom Slope. That's the Block 17 Chardonnay. So I understand why they need to name these, because sometimes when you just say Block 17, it's hard. I'm not crazy about descriptors. So on this wine, first let's go with the technical notes of this wine. The average age of the vines are 32 years. This is the first production of this wine. With all their wines, they're hand harvested and then whole cluster pressed. They're fermented with yeast native to the estate. The grapes are then fermented and aged for 18 months in new to 3-year-old French oak barrels, which are pretty large barrels. And then they're barrel fermented and wrapped after malolactic fermentation to fine lees. And so, and then the wines are kind of bottled or blended in very earlier this year. So these are fairly new wines. They do need some time. With their Pinot Noirs, I believe they need about 5 to 8 years. With their Chardonnays, like 2 to 3 years, just to soften up a little bit. So this one is a westerly exposure vineyard, and it creates a warm site for these vines, produce a lively, floral, and elegant wine. It's on coarse and loamy sand, and so that should give some minerality and energy to this wine. So let's have a taste and smell of this wine. So on the smell of this, you do get that minerality in this wine, which you also get with the Pinot, with their Pinot Noirs. You get fairly classic Chardonnay type. It's like a slight oak, a little peach pit, and some lemon on this wine. So it does, if you smell it, it does smell like a Chardonnay to me. Citrusy, orange, and then some minerality on the end of this wine. To me, it's a fairly classic Chardonnay taste, which has got that lively, citrusy, orangey taste to it. And then there's not a lot of oak influence on this, I would say. There is some creaminess, and that's why we call it kind of a peaches and cream style, like peach flavors. There's some creaminess. There's a little bit of oak. I think that oak just helps to kind of soften and to round out the taste, but I wouldn't say that it's an over oaked wine. So I like it. It's a fairly simple wine from my perspective, other than it's got some minerality. I think it will develop some complexity with a couple of years aging. So my rating of this wine right now is 87 points. The next wine we're going to taste is the Alluvium Reflection, which is Block 32. Again, it's from the 2022 vintage. My understanding of the 2022 vintage in Okanagan was it was a hot vintage. And so I think what we're going to expect with all the Chardonnays is going to have full fruit in their wines and a little bit more honey in it. Just as a kind of a primer for BC vintages, the 2021 did have smoke. The 2022, I think, was a hot vintage. 2023, I think, was not as hot. And then 2024, there was a lot of fires in the Okanagan, which actually burned a lot of vines. So there's not going to be a lot of wine out of 2024. So the notes on this wine, it was planted in 1990, and it's westerly facing. It catches the later morning and afternoon sun. It's surrounded by a rock mass, and then there's heat retention to it. There's mineral deposits and gravel soil. So interesting, it's kind of like taking apart a wine and getting its different elements. So it's so interesting to kind of taste. This is almost like experimental or scientific in terms of that. And I really would encourage you, if you have the means, to purchase all three at once, hold a little party, and go through them all. It's really interesting experiment because you can tell little differences. In some, I tell subtle differences. Some people that drink these wines can tell huge differences in the wine. But it's really an interesting way to taste the wine because it really hones your aromatic skills and also your palate. So on this wine, I get a little bit more like minerality and pepper notes on this. A little and less of the typical Chardonnay type, citrusy notes. That's the lighter notes. I don't get it as much with this wine. It's almost like, more minerally, more peppery, more savory. On this wine, just like its smell, you get the citrus elements, but they're really balanced with this minerality, a little bit more savory. I would say a little bit of spice, a little bit peppery. It's not spicy wine, but it's a pepperiness to it. And you still have the minerality. It's more savory in terms of its taste profile. And I think that helps it balance. I like this wine a little bit more. It's a more interesting wine to me. And so it's kind of, I'll kind of explain the three wines to you, but to me, this is really interesting. I can't really put my thumb on it. I think it's got different elements and it's a little bit more quirky. I think compared to the Block 17, which is a very nice wine, but kind of just nice. There's not really elements to it that are more interesting. This one, you can say it's a little more funky, or there's little things going on that you're not even sure if you like, so you go back to taste it. So to me, it's more interesting wine. So I'm going to rate this wine 89 points. Both of those reserve block wines were $49.99, and then we're going to now taste the reserve, which is $39.90. And this is their Chardonnay. This is their reserve wine, which they usually do. So the block single vintage are new to their collection. This is just a blend of all the high quality grapes throughout their vineyard, including these two exceptional vineyards. So it's a complex, full-bodied wine with citrus blossom and lemon lime zest and honey-like lime spice and surly character. So kind of a combination of the two. So let's kind of taste and smell this. So on the smell, I think it smells more like the Block 17 wine, and I think it's got a little bit more softness, so I can actually smell pineapple elements to this wine. And the minerality is not as pronounced. I would say more citrusy orange notes, a little bit lighter in terms of style. Of the three wines, this is the softest of them. it doesn't have as much minerality as the other two wines. It's very smooth, and it's got this classic Chardonnay minimal oak taste, citrus elements, lemon, lime, orange, honey. So I like this wine. So it's kind of in between. I'm going to rate it 88 points. So in summary, I like all these wines. And I don't think you should focus on my point rating, but I think you should more focus on my comments and which wine you like. First of all, all of them are very quality wines. And people may say, Trophy, you don't like these wines because you rate them 87 to 89 points. So just by comparison, and again, that's why I say points are not really that important, because I generally rate very low compared to wine critics, because I don't really have an audience. No one buys based on my ratings, so I can just be honest about my ratings. So just as an example, and people can check this out. I have a video on our critics have said is 100-point wine, the best Chardonnay that BC produces. It's Checkmate's Little Pond, which I have a review on, which I'll put on the end of this video. That wine is supposed to be a 100-point wine. I rated it at 90 points. So if I rate these 87 to 89 points, they're very good wines in my opinion for a BC Chardonnay. I liked personally, the best wine that I liked was the Block 32. I just think it's very interesting. It's complex. It's got some elements that are very out there. It's a little bit more savory. It's got more stuff. I liked the Reserve. Firstly, it's cheaper than the blocks, and it's more softer. It doesn't have the minerality of the other two wines. It's more kind of middle of the road, but very pleasing. It's a great example of a peaches and cream type Chardonnay. And then the Block 17, it has that minerality, and it's quite light also. So it's got elements of both. But if you recall my video on the Pinot Noir of Blue Mountain, their reserve wines, I actually liked their Cuvee, which was their blended reserve wine, better than all their single vineyard. In this situation, I actually like one of their single vineyards more, and I like the blended wine more than one of the other single vineyards. So you really have to drink these wines, and I'm so pleased I got a chance to try all these wines. It's not about which one is better. Quite frankly, they're all good quality wines. I hope you'll take my tasting notes and then based on that say, well, that's me, I like this. So if you like and I drank with quite a few people these wines, and we had varied opinions, but most people agreed with me that a lot of people liked the Block 32. A lot of people liked the Reserve, and I think of the three wines, there were fewer people that liked the Block 17. And so it was more just, it was, I thought the Block 17 was a little bit lighter than everything else. It had that, but it has minerality. The Reserve wine is just a very, very pleasant drinking wine, and the Block 32 has something different, something more complex. And so some people like complexity, some people like just a really good drinking wine. And so it depends on what you're looking for in a Chardonnay. Hope you've enjoyed this video and hope it's been useful. Until next time, happy drinking.